the comment, "I've never asked to be here," is a statement that I just recently heard from my daughter, whom I love dearly. And I've heard it from other kids as well. I never asked to be here. It's interesting because I don't remember at any point in time in my life ever saying or making that declaration to my parents. Which leads to the next point. Kids today like to say that the time you lived in is totally different than the time we live in. And those are just two topics I want to hit real quick. It's going to take a few minutes just to talk about them. So, this statement that I never asked to be here is interesting because who has, or who of us who are here currently live or are amongst the living asked to be here? None of us asked to be here. So for you to even make that comment is interesting. The reason for making the comment is probably what's intriguing to me, because they're trying to suggest, at least I believe this is the implication that they're trying to give off, is they're trying to suggest that it is your responsibility to make sure that I'm well taken care of, and not my responsibility to take care of you. So you just are supposed to do for me at whatever cost, at whatever expense. Some people agree with that. But then you have to understand the role and responsibility of parenting. You know, what is the responsibility of me as a father when it comes to the recipients of my contribution? My kids are the recipients of my contribution. So what is it I'm supposed to give to them? My responsibility as a parent is to make sure that I prepare and I train my children to be independently successful outside of my dependence. Notice the key word. Train them to be independent so that they're not reliant or dependent upon me. As they continue to get older, I have to position them and posture them in a way where they understand the responsibilities of choices. You know, they always say, well, you and mom made a choice. You made a decision to lay down and do the do, and then you had us, and we're the result of what it is you guys chose to do. And life is a series of choices. I always say, that you're born looking like your parents, but you'll die looking like your decisions, which is a very true statement. You are born looking like your parents, and you will die looking like your decisions. The key is you'll die looking like your decisions. You won't die looking like mine. So ultimately, in this life, you have decisions that you are going to make that are going to determine your level of success and or failure. And it's up to you to be able to bear the responsibility and burden of your choices and or decisions. I say that to say, because when you say things like that I didn't choose to be here, for one, you can't take for granted the joy and the privilege that comes with being here. You are awarded an opportunity within the space of time that God has designated for you to occupy and for you to contribute to the elements of the world that you currently live in, or the reality of the world that you live in. He's designated for you to exist in the framework of this time. So it is imperative and important for you to make sure that you embody that, make sure that you appreciate that. But at the same time, just as I made choices and I have, things that I've done, and there are rewards and or consequences to the decisions that we make, you have to understand that. I told this to my daughter. I said, you're right, I have a choice as to whether or not I choose to take you to work or choose to not to take you to work. I also have a choice, to say no, to take you to school or not to take you to school. And because you had a choice and you chose to get a job, and because it's my responsibility to bear the weight and the burden of my choices, it is also your responsibility to bear the weight and burden of your choices. So you can choose to get an Uber to work, which is going to cost you more money than the $10 or $15 that you might pay me, every other week, or, seldomly do I take money from my kids. I don't do that often, but I want them to get in the habit of understanding that if somebody goes out of their way to make sure they get you or take you or drop you off at a place where you need to be, it is your responsibility to make sure you do something kind, gas money, something to show them a level of appreciation that you have for them doing something for you that they didn't have to do. So it's important for you to understand that. The second thing is, so I just want to embrace that, you understanding, none of us chose to be here. So we can't use that as an excuse to undermine or underappreciate the value of this life that we have. And yes, as parents, it is our responsibility to take care of you up until a certain point, but at the same time, it's our responsibility to train and position you to be able to posture yourself in a way where you can understand how to be independently successful outside of my dependence, outside of my success. We want you to embrace that reality. So we have to train you early. I'm not going to wait till you're an adult to teach you how to be responsible for yourself. The last thing is time. Yeah, times are different. You guys are being raised in a different time, and the world is much different than what it is. It once was. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? Is the world a better place now as a result of all the changes, or is it a worse place? But ultimately, it comes down to the principles of life. The principles of life never change. Like the law of gravity doesn't change, even though the times change. And I think what the most amazing thing is, the environments change, but it doesn't mean the posturing of our God changes. God is still the same. He's the most consistent, most stable anchor that we have. When everything else changes, God is the one thing that we can come back to, because he's always constantly, consistently himself. He doesn't compromise the integrity of his person and or his character in any way. He can exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions without compromising the integrity of his person. So it's imperative for us to understand that the principles of life still change. Biologically, a man and a woman still have to have a baby. In order for life to continue to exist, the man and the woman have to come together. Whether it's through sex, whether it's through artificial insemination, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. So I just wanted to tackle that really quickly. This is a discussion we're going to have on a podcast with kids. We're not trying to take away what it is you guys feel. We should give our kids the opportunity to express what it is they feel and or think, as long as you can be justified. It has to be some justifiable grounds to substantiate your argument. You can't argue just a point because of the way you feel. But you have to be able to stand strong in your argument and be able to defend yourself with regard to why it is you feel that way. Not defend yourself in a way where it's being mean, or you're trying to play down what it is we say to you. We love you, we want the best for you, and we understand the reality of this world that you live in. The thing about it is there are experiences that you guys go through that we may not understand, but we have experiences from both sides of the coin. We were young once, and now we're older now. So there are things that we can share with you, perhaps, that you can't share with us in this real world that we live in, because it tends to cater more to you. Yeah, there are things, intellectually you might be able to share with us with regard to the changing of society. But there are some substantial arguments that we have as older people who have experience that we can share with you that you'll never be able to gain from a book or anything else. So just learn how to embrace. We're embracing you, you embrace us, and we'll move from there. So once again, I didn't ask to be here. None of us did. We're all happy that you are. We're happy at the fact that you are, but don't get upset with your parents when they try to position you to be able to be a successfully independent individual outside of the dependence, or outside of depending on your parents to be able to rely, or relying on your parents to be able to take care of you. And it's also inevitable for you to understand that even though the world is changing, you're going to have to understand that the bedrock of this foundation is built on standards that will never be moved and that will never change. The sun still sets, and it still rises and it sets. And these things are consistently and continuously going to continue to happen. So there's some continuities and some things that will continue to transpire, and then there's some things that change. And then we have to ask ourselves, is the change that we see, is it in the best interest of us? Is it in the best interest of, or is it in the worst interest of us? Is it not beneficial to us? Is it more of a hindrance than a help? These are questions that we have to ask. So listen, I love you. This is Sean Saunders. I'm not pastor anymore. But, it is what it is. New podcasts coming out. We'll have these discussions. Just a little entertainment for you, just to intrigue you. tune in. Okay. Hey, God bless you. I love you.